So I'm going to be showing you guys the first capelet I ever made, and it's actually the only capelet I've ever made. I made this capelet back in 2016 when I went on my Japan trip, and I made it because I wanted it to accent the cute outfits I was wearing in Japan. One of those being my Morgan, my deer sample that I showed you guys earlier. Or perhaps you've seen it in a different video. And so because it was more of a goth theme, most of my coordinates, because it was Halloween, I was going with like kind of goth, I decided a black capelet would be best. So this capelet is inspired by this absolutely gorgeous capelet that I saw at a flea market by my friend's house. And I think I talked about this a little bit in my Japan video, but I didn't get a chance to really show you guys the capelet very much. So I'm going to show you guys today. I tried to remember as many details as I could about the vintage capelet, and heck, I would have bought the vintage capelet if it wasn't for the fact that it was $90 and it was falling apart. And when you have velvet that's old, like really old, probably like 1930s or 1920s old, you know, it's nice to hang on your wall, maybe frame it, but like for 90 bucks I want to make something that's usable. So for 60 bucks I went and I made my own. And I did actually add a few things to it that weren't on the original one, like these gorgeous clasps and things like that. But for the most part, I tried to keep like the style of it similar. So this is a velvet capelet. Wow, that looks really weird when I get close like that. You see how it's turning like purple at the edges there? I guess it's trying to show you the color, but that's okay. So what I did was I did these vintage style bows. I actually looked up how to do it. And if you can see, like, it's kind of like a double bow. Basically, you just do it yourself, where it's just one piece of fabric. It's not several, like, you know how bows are typically like several pieces of fabric? It's one. It's like a knot, basically. And I tied this at the end. And then I used this lovely trim right here that I got. It's like a very dark gray. The way this is blowing it out makes it look like very bright, but it's actually very subtle dark gray. I also used some really nice high quality black lace along the collar here, and this collar is way better than my first OP collar that I might have shown you guys earlier. I sewed in this like vintage like tag thing that I found, and I also used some vintage fabric on the inside of this capelet. Here's the back of it. It has 3 bows total. It has 2 on the shoulders, 1 on the back. It was very hard to sew these details in because I had to sew them in before I sewed the lining in, and capelets are kind of weird. So it's kind of hard. This right here, I did ruffles all along the edge, and I actually used lining fabric, like that typical lining fabric you'd find at like Joann's, to make it, because the original one, the vintage one at the store, had something similar like that. So that's what I went ahead and did. I also got these clasps at Joann's. And the really nice thing about this capelet is that it sits right at the top of the bust when I wear it. So it actually sits like right here, which means it showcases my dress as opposed to covering it. So that's actually why I made it such a high up capelet. And it also looked really good when I put it over top of this black coat that I made, a black Lolita coat I made, because the white one didn't really go with what we were doing in Japan. Also, it didn't have enough flair, the original one. So let me show you guys the inside of this. Not really sure if anyone's really interested, but I thought I'd just show you guys all of it. So it's fully lined, it's nice, it has like nice finishing seams and all that. And like I said, it's just some vintage floral fabric that I found. I did that because the original one had like a lighter color fabric, and I have noticed that a lot, like a lot of old vintage stuff. I really find it charming that they go and they use like really pretty lining for things. So they don't skimp on the lining. So I went ahead and made sure that I kind of kept that vintage feel by doing that. So that is my vintage capelet that I made for myself, my vintage inspired capelet. And I'm not sure if anyone else has made a lot of capelets for Lolita, but I really would like to see if anyone else has. And I would love to hear your stories about it. So make sure you just pop a comment below and let me know about it. And if you like this stuff, you like seeing my first whatever that I made, please subscribe and like this video, so I know to be sending out more content like this. And I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Have a good day.